Welcome to this video on the basics of creating simple GUIs in Python using the library Tkinter. Today we're going to look at just sort of how to use GUIs and how to create them in Python, and sort of how to use this library Tkinter, which is, I'll be honest, a very simple library to use. It is what people would call very basic, to be honest, with GUIs, because it doesn't have many features as to do with like animations and stuff like that, but it is really simple. I'm sure if you've never done GUIs before, this should be a really easy way to sort of start, sort of understand the sort of underlying concepts with GUIs, which I'll explain in this video. And just to let you know, there are timestamps down below in the description so that you can skip through sort of the main topics to do with GUIs. If you're here for some particular topic, then you might find it in the description below, but I would recommend sort of watching the video in full, because there is other things within sort of those topics. I've sort of covered them overall, right? I've sort of given them titles, right? But there is stuff that I've covered within each topic that you might want to know about. So please do watch the video in full. Let's get started. Alright, so I guess we've got to start off with what Tkinter actually is, right? So in Python, you can import code that other people have written or yourself has written that's already been written and tested and that you can use in another program. And this is called a library. So library obviously being a group of files. It can also be just one file. You can import one file in if you like, but what people tend to do is they tend to import a load of files which contain different functions and procedures which they might want to use in their code. Tkinter is a GUI or GUI library. To start off with, to use Tkinter, we want to start by importing it into our file. So the way we're going to do that is we could very simply actually just type import Tkinter. Now this would work, but if you have ever used a library before, you'll know that if you import something like this, every time you want to use a class or a function from this library, you have to type tkinter.tk or tkinter.label. Every time that I want to access something from Tkinter, I have to type tkinter dot, which will be a little bit tedious as you keep going on and writing a lot of code, right? So what some other people tend to do is they type import Tkinter as tk. Now what this means is every time you take Tkinter, you import the exact same module, the exact same library rather, but you're importing it instead using this name. So here we are, tk.label is exactly the same as what we'd written tkinter.label before. But even then, this is actually fine, but I'd say it's slightly easier if you were just able to, let's imagine you were able to just write label just like this, like you just written a label just like this, and you wouldn't even have to write this tk dot, because imagine writing thousands of different widgets into your code, but every time you had to write tk dot, that would take a little bit more time, right? So the way we want to use it just like this is, instead of writing this, we write from Tkinter import asterisk. Now what this does is it imports every single function and procedure that Tkinter has, every single class that Tkinter has, and allows you to access it just like this. Okay, so now we've imported Tkinter into our code, we now need to set it up. So we're going to set up a little window that we can use. The first thing that you need to do in Tkinter is you need to set up what's known as your root window or your master window. What this is the window that all of your different code modules are going to go into, right? So this is the main window that you're going to use. we create one of these first of all by creating a variable. So I'm going to call it root because it is the root window, and we could type tk. This is our Tkinter. This is our base window, our root window. All of the widgets that we create, and by the way, widgets being objects that you can put onto the screen in Tkinter, they're called widgets. All the widgets that we have are going to go into this root window. The next thing we want to do is we want to then add a little title. So if you pull up any window that you have in Windows, you'll find that you might have a title at the top of the screen. We're also going to add one of those. Now you type root.title, because root is our tk window. You can just do root dot and you can run this procedure, and this will change the title of the window. And we're gonna, let's call it my application. There we are, nice and simple. Now if you run this, what's gonna happen is, let's give it a try. Did you see it just ended right there, straight away, nothing happened? I'll try running it again. It executes this, but then doesn't run anything. The reason is because with a GUI, with a GUI application, you need to initiate basically an infinite loop that will keep going over the contents in the screen again and again to check for if anything changes. That's how stuff is displayed. So in Tkinter, the way we do our infinite loop is we're going to do root.main loop and do open close brackets like that. As you see, this will call the infinite loop to keep refreshing whatever happens on the screen so that Tkinter can display it. So now if I do root.main loop, there we are. Now we have an application. As you can see, if I drag this out a little bit, you can see the title of the window has been made there. Now, if you saw when I restart, let me try restarting this. Did you see how it opens up with this tiny little box, right? This is probably not ideal for if we want to make an actual application, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to set a geometry size for this window. The way we're going to do that is we're going to do, very simply, root.geometry. And when you run this, this is a procedure, by the way. If you don't know what procedures are, take a look at my previous video. So we do root.geometry and we're going to do open close brackets, and we will set a title. We're going to set a geometry rather, just like this. You type the height by the width, and let's give it a try. No, in fact, the width by the height. My apologies. So the way we do that, we're going to do 500 by 400. That should be fine. And let's give it a try. Sometimes you have to keep restarting it and then changing it just to see if you get the optimum dimensions that you want. Let's take a look. That looks okay. I think that'll do for now. I'm not sure what we're going to do with it. We might have to change it later though. Let's take a look. Okay, we've set up Tkinter now. Now we need to put some stuff on the screen, right? So everything that you put on the screen in Tkinter is called a widget. So you can have different types of widgets. You can have labels, which is stuff like text. You can have buttons, which obviously are buttons, right? but they can be used to sort of send information, and to capture that information, you could use an entry box. That would be a text entry box that a user can enter stuff into, like a username and password, for example. So when we have Tkinter, we've got at the top, we've got our root window, right? We've got our main window, and then at the bottom, we've got our main loop, right? Everything that we have, everything in our application has to go between this and this. Okay, this has to be at the top, this has to be at the bottom, because this is our infinite loop. So everything from here to here, from the initiation of our window to the main loop, that's all the stuff that's going to be looped. Okay, so this has to go at the end. Okay, if you've ever done HTML, you'll know that in your HTML, you're going to have, at the top, you'd have your sort of HTML tag. Think of it like this. And then you'd have a head tag, right? And that's where stuff like your information about your page, but sort of not like directly content, that goes in the head. You can think of this section as the head, right? This doesn't strictly have to go at the top, but it's nice to sort of set it out at the top. But of course, this can be changed at any time if you call this method. Then after you've done your head, now you have your body. That's going to be all of this bit. So let's try putting some stuff on the screen now. So let's just quickly run this application, see what it looks like to start off with. Okay, we've got this now. Well, let's say, for example, let's try and add a little box here. Or let's actually start. Let's start with a little title, right? Because the title will be quite nice. So we're going to make an application that takes in a user's name. Nice and basic, right? Whenever you started Python, after you do hello world, you got to do what's your name input, right? So we're going to try doing that with Tkinter now. Okay, let's start with a label to greet our user, right? So we're going to start by creating a variable. We're going to give it a nice clear name, label title. Okay. Now this is going to be text at the top of our screen, right? So what I'm going to call it, I'm going to call it label, just like that. Now the first parameter that you have to put in is always the master window. As you can see, with nice IDs like VS Code or PyCharm, it shows you what the first parameter should be. It says master here. You don't have to type master equals. You can just type in the name of your master or your root window. So I'm just going to type root. Okay, that's the first one. So now Tkinter knows where this widget should be. It says, okay, its master window is root. Okay, the next parameter you want to add is your text. Let's type text equals, and then we just put in a string what we want the text to say. Let's type hello. Okay, now if I've just created the widget now, let's try running it. As you can see, it hasn't actually come up on the screen, right? Because we've created it. Now we have to do what's known as packing it or putting it on the screen. Now, to put stuff on the screen in Tkinter, there are two main methods, and they use what's known as a geometry manager. Okay, so there are two main geometry managers in Python in Tkinter. The first one is pack. So what pack does, it's the simplest one, and what it does, it just puts it on the screen. First one goes at the top, the next one will go underneath it, the next one will go underneath that, etc, etc. Let's give it a try now. So what we do, we type the widget, and then we do dot pack, open close brackets. Nice and simple. Now let's give it a try. Let's see what we've got. Alright, there we go. It says hello. It's very small, right? And as you can see, it's been put straight away in the middle of the screen. If I did another widget, it would go straight underneath my first widget. It's sort of like stacking them up from top to bottom. That's what the pack manager does. Okay. Now, that was a bit small, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the font now. We type font equals, and now you can specify a font family and a size that you want. So you specify these in a tuple, where the first thing is the font family, the font name. The second part is the size that you want. So let's try Calibri, right? Let's try Calibri as our font. That's a nice font. And the second part is the size. Let's try 20 for now. Now, one common thing that you'll see in all sort of GUI development is that you might have to keep trying numbers, keep trying little things and refreshing it just to see if you think it's right, and then if it's not, you can make adjustments, etc, etc, that kind of thing. So let's try. We're going to try calibrate in 20, see if it looks okay. Alright, I think that looks fine for now. For our little window, I think that's alright. So I'm going to leave that for now. Let's try putting a little entry box for the user now to enter their name. So we're going to call it entry, name equals entry. First parameter is always the root window. Root. Now our next parameter, let's give this one a font as well. Because the font is going to be, of course, when the user types in, what is the font going to look like? So we're going to do the same. Calibrate and 20. Okay, we've made our widget. Now we have to pack it on the screen. Entry name dot pack. Now you'll see what I mean when I said that they sort of stack. Let's give it a try. There we are. So we've got our title, and then we've got the entry that's gone straight underneath it. Now, if you've ever seen a sort of login window, you'll see that the stuff's never really sort of on top of each other. It's never like, you never get your username, and then the button for it is not just like right underneath it. You have to be able to like sort of position stuff like to the right of it and stuff like that. Now that is a disadvantage if you're using pack, because all the pack can do is sort of put stuff on top of each other. Now that's not very useful for positioning everything. So the next method I'm going to show you, which is called grid. Now that allows you to have a little bit more freedom, but not fully freedom. It allows you to position it as you expect in a sort of grid. So let's give gridding a try. Now, one thing to note is that when you have a geometry manager like pack or grid, you can only use one of them at once. If you try and do one widget with pack and then one widget with grid, it doesn't always work. So you're going to want to stick with one main one, okay? So let's try grid now. So with grid, what you have to do is you have to first specify a row, and I'm going to start with row 0, and you have to specify a column. Let's try column 0 as well. So that will just be top left basically. The next thing we're going to try here, we're going to change this from pack to grid. We'll go row equals. Let's say now this time we actually want it to be right underneath it. Now that's very easy. We can just do row equals 1 and column equals 0. So it's in the same column but the row underneath. Let's give it a try. There you go. So our widget has come in the middle, and then the entry has come right underneath it. Now I think actually that widget, that entry is a bit too close to the side of the screen, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something called padding, which is going to send it a little bit to the right as we want. So you can either pad up and down, which is called pad Y, or you can pad left and right, which is called pad X. So let's try a little pad X for this entry. We're going to do pad X equals 10. Now we're going to give that a try. Okay, as you can see, it has sort of come a little bit away from the screen, away from the side of the screen. I want it a bit more than that, so I'm going to do another micro adjustment. Let's give it 40. Okay, that's fine. Let's go a little bit more than that. Maybe 80? 80 might be too far. Let's give it a try. Alright, so 80 is fine. I think 80 should be okay for now. But let's give it a try now, trying to place something to the right of this entry box. So let's say, for example, a button, maybe to submit what the user's name is, let's say. So let's create a button now, really similar to the label and entry stuff. It's just, I'm going to give it a name, so I'll call it button, just like this, btn. Let's call it submit. You could just call it button, like button, but just to shorten it up, we have loads. I'll put btn just like that. So we're going to do button submit equals button. Same thing, specify your root window. Then we're going to give it some text as well. Text equals, and let's call it OK. Okay. Alright, we've made a widget, now we have to pack it on the screen. Well, in this case, we're going to use the grid method. So let's give that a try. Button submit equals, button submit.grid. Okay, so in our previous thing, we had the hello label, we had an entry box, and now we're going to place this button to the right of the entry box. So we're going to go for row equals 1. This time, it was previously column equals 0, so now let's try column equals 1. Okay, so we've got quite a large distance here. You might be wondering, why have we got such a large distance? Now that is to do with how we've padded our widgets. So as you can see, we've got on this entry box, we've got pad x equals 80. Now by default, what Python will do is it will pad from both sides. So it pads from the left 80 units and then from the right 80 units as well. It gives it on both sides, and that's just how you do it by default. But let's say I only wanted really, what I was trying to do, I was just trying to get it away from this left side of the screen, right? So let's say we only want padding on the left side, but we actually don't want any on the right side. We can actually adjust that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the pad X of our entry. We're going to go to it, and what we're going to do, we're going to change it to a tuple now. So if you have a tuple like this, let's give it a tuple. The left number is going to be how much it pads from the left, and then the right number is going to be how much it pads from the right. So if you have two elements, right, so element 0 is going to be how much from the left, and then element 1 will be how much from the right. So let's say we want 0 from the right, we'll go 80, 0. So this is from the left, there, this is from the right, there. Okay, let's restart the program. There we go. As you can see, we've got our left padding, but now we haven't got any on this right side. So we have two options now. We could either pad using the entry box, we could pad, or we could just do a separate padding on the button. That's what I'm going to do here. So let's go pad x equals, and we don't just specify left and right for now, so let's just go for 20. See if it stays on the screen there. Yeah, I think that looks okay. It looks a little bit wonky, actually. It does look a little bit wonky. We can sort out that to make it in the middle, but I think that's okay for now. Let's change the font of this to match our other stuff. So let's go over here. We'll go font equals, again, use as tuple, Calibri, and we'll go for 15. Let's try 15 to start off with. There we go. Okay, I think 15 is fine. Maybe a little bit smaller than that would be better. But now, let's see what we can do with this, right? So I can type stuff into it. So, and I click OK. Nothing really happens with this, right? When I click my button, as you can see, it's an absolute basic button. It just says the text OK and has a font. It really doesn't do anything. So that is what we're going to sort out now. We're going to give this what's called a command to this button. So what a command is, or a callback, also known as. So what you can do is you can make it so that when this button is clicked, it calls another function, calls another procedure, which will do something. And that is how we can get the input from this entry box. Here's how we're going to do it. What we're going to do is we're going to first create our procedure for getting the stuff from this box. Okay, so let's create that. We're going to call it, let's call it get name. Okay, there we go. So we're going to call it pass for now. Don't have to do anything with that yet. What we're going to do in here now, in the button, is we're going to give it a command. Here we go. Command, and very simply you just pass in the name of this function. It has been called after it, so what we have to do, we have to move this now to go above it. Okay, nice and simple. Now with a different way of doing GUIs, which is called object oriented, the way you would do it is you could specify it in a different way so that the order of wherever you put this function doesn't really matter. I'll go into it, it's called using classes, and I'll go into it in a separate video, but just for now, because we're specifying a command or specifying a function, that function has to be declared first, right? As it goes obviously from top to bottom, it needs to be declared first. Okay, so we've declared our function, we've assigned the command. Let's give it a try now. So as we click it, nothing really happens, but we have assigned the command, no errors have been found. Let's just try something now. Say okay, let's see if it works. Let me open up my terminal a little bit. There you go. As you can see, when I click the button, this command is called. Right? So now let's give it some sort of use, right? So the way we're going to do this, what we want is we want to get the input from this entry box, right? So the way we're going to do that is we are going to go to this entry name, right? And what we can do entry name dot get, and that gets you whatever is in entry name. Okay, and we're going to assign that to a variable. Let's say user input equals entry name dot get. So whatever is returned from this entry box, that gets put into user input, and we can use that. And do hello there, and let's just do really simply comma user input. There we go. This is just for testing purposes. We can display it later on the screen afterwards. Okay. So let's restart. Do we have anything? Yeah, as you can see, because this is empty, it's doing nothing right now. Let's type mog. Hello there, mog. As you can see, it works. So now let's use our application that we've made. Let's make it greet the user, but this time on the screen, right? Because if a user is using this GUI application, they're not going to see the console, right? They're not going to see this bit. They're not going to see the terminal. So we can actually alter this one instead. I'll show you how to do that now. So let's start off by calling this enter your name. Let's make it a little bit more clear what we want to do. Okay. So now let's alter this label once we get the user's name, right? So we've got the user's name from this entry box using the .get method. Now we need to alter this label. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the label title, and we're going to do .configure. And what that does is it means that we can change any of these attributes that we have here. Okay, so the attribute that we want to change, that's going to show the text, is the text one. So we're going to go text equals, and we're just going to put in hello there, and then the user's name. We're going to use an F string here, so I'm going to put F here, and we can just put in the user's name there. Okay, nice and simple. Let's give it a try, see if it works. Right, let's enter my name, Mog. Hello there, Mog. There you go. It has changed the thing. So that allows you to change the value of other attributes, of other widgets, once we've got a command set to this button. Okay, so let's alter our program a little bit. Now, let's say that we had an application that had to take in a username and a password, right? Now, we would need to hide the user's password when they're entering it, right? Because we can't have them enter a password and it just shows them what it is. Imagine if someone was, let's say, looking over their shoulder or something like that. We need to hide it. So, let's create a second entry box here, and let's make it so that it only shows asterisks when the user is entering something. Let's give that a try. So, what we're going to do, we're going to leave this here for now. Let's create a second entry box just here. Okay. So I'm going to copy and paste the same thing, just so I don't have to type it all out. Let's call it entry password this time. Okay. And entry password. And now that has to be packed in a slightly different place. Let's put it right underneath. So let's do row equals 2, column equals 0. And we'll do the same sort of padding, okay? Let's move the entry box as well. So not the entry box, sorry, the button. Let's move the button so that it's underneath. That would make more sense, so that once the user's entered both the details, their stuff gets submitted, right? So what we're going to do, we don't want it to be next to it. There's going to be one here. This is going to be row 1. This is going to be row 2. So the one after is going to be row 3. Okay. Let's put row 3. We'll go column equals 0 to make it the same column as all this stuff. Just like that. Now let's see if it's any good. Alright, we have got 2 entry boxes here. Let's give them a little bit of a pad in between. Right, so if it was pad X to go from left to right, it's going to be pad Y to go up and down, right? So we're going to take our entry password and give it a pad Y of. Now we can use a tuple again. The first number is going to be the padding from the top, and the second number is going to be the padding from the bottom. So I only want padding from the top, so let's go with 20. We've got 20, 0. Let's give it a try. That is okay. Don't know, for some reason, I don't know if you can see that. That top box looks bigger for some reason. I don't know. Yeah, that's okay. That's fine now then. I'm actually going to give the top one a bit of padding as well. What I might do then is I'm going to adjust this. So this is not going to have padding, but instead I'll just do a pad Y here instead. Right? Because that would mean that we have a top and bottom padding as well. We'll go pad Y 15. Okay, so it goes pad Y, top and bottom 15. Yeah, nice and simple. Okay? We haven't given this any labels, right? So maybe for accessibility that might be nicer to have some labels, but we'll leave it for now. And let's change our button a little bit. Let's go pad X equals 50, and we'll go pad Y equals 20. Let's give it a little bit more space. Yeah, it should be okay for now. So let's change this label so it says enter your details. And so the first box is going to be the user's email or something like that. And then the second box should be their password. But now if you see right now, it shows their details. We don't want that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do show equals asterisk. What this does is every character the user enters is going to be shown like this. Let's give it a try. So we're going to say hello. As you can see, you can't see what I've written. To be honest, I don't know what I've written either. It's a bit gibberish, but if I said hello, you can't see what that says until you change the show, right? So let's say that instead, let's say we wanted to make sure that the user can see what they've written. Let's use another button, right? So we haven't actually changed this yet. This is still the same as the previous tutorial, but let's add another button now. Let's go here. We're going to take the same one and we're going to put it in here. We're going to go button show hide. Okay. And okay. So it's going to start by saying show, right? Because at the start, the user's thing is it's going to be blank. So that's also, it's actually in the same place, so I've got to change that now. Let's go like this then. So it is currently in, we want it to be in the third row, same kind of thing. So we've got 0, 1, 2. Now we want it in row 2, right? Row equals 2, and we'll go column equals 1. Okay, so we go row equals 2, column equals 1. Nice and simple. It's gonna have all that padding, so let's remove that. Let's make it as the entry password. It's actually got no right padding, so I can actually add some here. We're going to pad X of 20. Might have to remove the pad Y, let's see. No, it looks okay for now. So the next thing to do is to now make it so that when you click this, see, look, it's currently assigned to this thing, right? It's currently assigned to this. We're going to change it so that when you click it, it will change the show attribute of this entry. Because using this .configure method, right, using this method allows you to change any attribute. So if you use this, you can click on it, and when it runs whatever function, it will change this show to make it blank, for example. Blank means that it shows all the normal characters. Okay? So what we're going to do, let's make a new function here. Let's call it show hide. Okay, nice and simple. And we are going to just go like this. We'll go label, no, not label, entry password .configure show equals this. Now, this is only one way of doing it, right? Because the user should be able to either show or hide it, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to make a variable now. It's just going to be a simple flag, right? So a boolean sort of true false kind of thing. So we're going to say shown, okay? Show, yeah, we'll call it shown for now. That means like, is the password shown or not? And we're going to currently call it false. That means that the password's not being shown. So we're going to say if not shown, that means that if shown is false, we're going to go and change it. We're going to go and change it to show nothing. It will show just normal characters. And we're going to change that, shown equals true. And there's one more thing we have to change, right? We have to change this button to, instead of showing the word show, it should show hide, right? Because that's what's going to happen if you click on it again. So we're going to go button, show hide, and we're going to configure that to say text equals hide. Nice and simple. Now, if we go else, right, because the only other possibility is that shown is true, we want to do basically the entire opposite. So we're just going to do that. We're going to go show equals asterisk, shown equals false, because it's now showing asterisks, right? And then show hide is just going to say show. Let's give it a try. Okay, so we're going to enter the details. Let's say log, right? Currently you can't see the password. Let's click on it. One more thing. I forgot to change the assignment of this command, right? So we're going to go here. We're going to change it to the name of this function. I'm going to call it show hide. Just tap that there, show hide. Nice and simple. Let's get F5. Okay, so I'll go mog and we'll go this. Okay, let's see.
Alright everyone, it's me again. It's me in editing here. You see, I seem to have made a slight mistake while recording this video, right? So, when I was setting up this show hide function, you see, I had initially set it up with this flag, as you might have seen, shown equals false, but on running this, you might have seen a slight snippet of the error that might have occurred. Now this is because this variable that has been created can't be accessed when this function is being created because of how Tkinter deals with functions, right? And I have, on fixing this error, right, I had thought of two different ways of doing it. There was one way which was going to be passing in a parameter for the value, right, which could have worked. Or the other way of doing it was to use this method called cget, which is to get the value of any attribute that you specify. That is the way I've gone with. I'll explain it a little bit more if you keep on watching. I do apologize for the error. Back to the video.
What we're going to do is instead of using this shown thing, we're going to say show hide value. We're going to call it show hide val, and that's going to be entry password dot cget. Now this is cget is basically like for any attribute that you have, let's get the value of it. Okay, so we're going to go cget, and then we have to enter in whatever the attribute is that we want to get the value of. So in this case, our attribute is show, so we're just going to enter that as a string show. Okay, now we're going to have if show hide val equals asterisk, which is going to be, it's like the one if it's what you call it, hidden. We're going to have to change it and make it unhidden, right? And else it's going to change it back and make it hidden. Okay, let's do that now. So if I enter my details, currently it's hidden. Let's give it a try. There we go. As you can see, when you click it, it changes the text, it changes the show, and let's click it again. There you go, nice and simple. It can change these characters. Now I haven't actually configured this button yet, so just do the same thing as before, right? We could change it so that we can get the value of this password, because when you get the value of it, you're not actually getting asterisks, right? You're getting the real value of whatever the user's written, but it just shows asterisks just to hide for extra privacy, right? Alright, so the last thing I'm going to show you in this video is going to be about something called frames. Basically, a frame is just a sort of container in which you can place widgets. Now, all this time we've been treating this TK window, our main window, that's essentially been our sort of master container for all our widgets, right? We've just been placing it straight in there. But now what we can do is we can place them in a frame, and what that means is all of the widgets that sit in that frame can basically be shown or hidden. They can be sort of like placed in bulk, if that makes sense. So let's say I have a frame that has an entry box and a label in it, right? What I can do with my frame is that if I show my frame, both of those widgets are shown, right? They're sitting in the box and you can see what's inside the box. But now let's say I hide the frame, then whatever's in the frame, you can't see it, right? You can't see the frame, so you can't see the widgets. What that's useful for is, let's say you're creating a second sort of screen in the same application. Let's say for our application, we've currently got the login screen, right? So that could be one frame. The second frame could be the details page, or like the account page, right, for the user. It shows whatever the actual application is. We can do that using frames in Tkinter. So let's give that a try. So what we have to do now is we have to first create our frame. Okay, so let's create the frame here. We're gonna go frame login equals frame. We're going to give it the same master, right? The same master window, which is going to be root. And we're going to give it a slightly smaller height, right? We're going to give it, let's leave, our current thing is 500 by 400. So we're going to give it a margin of, let's say, 10 each way, right? So let's call it 20 less. We're going to say height equals, oh wait, no, sorry. Let's do, we're going to go, 20 less for each one, okay? So we go height equals 380, width equals 480. Nice and simple. Now the thing is with a frame is that you can't see it, right? So you can't see the frame when you place it down, but you can see the stuff inside of it because by default the frame's background is transparent. Okay, so with all of these, you see how we've created the master to be root. Now, because all of these are going in our login one, the root now needs to be, the master needs to be frame login, not the root, because the root is our sort of master window, right? Then what could go inside the master window is the frame, and then inside the frame is all of our widgets. Okay, so we're going to change this root here. I'm going to call it frame login. I'm going to copy and paste that for to save time. So all of these ones we're just going to place it there. Okay, now if I run this, because they're all placed inside the frame, we've not placed the frame yet, so they can't see it. Okay, so let's place the frame now. Let's give it a try. Now with the frame, we can actually pack the frame into our master window. Let's give it a try. There we go. So what we've done here is we've just placed the frame straight into our window. That's really simple, right? Now, if we remove the frame, straight after, it will remove all of the widgets. And that makes it really easy then to make a second screen. So let's create a quick second screen, right? So let's say we have frame count, and we're going to say equals frame. Same kind of thing, we have to place the master is going to be our root, right? This one here. So we're going to go root, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to say height is going to be 380, width is going to be 480. We're going to say, let's create a quick label welcome equals, let's call it label root, not root actually, frame account, because this label is now going to sit in this frame. So at the start, when this frame isn't being placed down, you can't see this label. Okay, I'm going to just copy and paste the same kind of thing as here, right? Instead, we're going to change this to frame account, and we're going to say welcome, and it's currently going to say nothing, right? Because what we can do is we can then change the value of this label once the user signs in. Okay, so we're going to go here just like that. That should be fine, right? And what we can do is we can place this label into the frame, right? But because the frame's not being placed, no matter whether it's been placed or not, we can't see it anyway, because it's just sitting in this frame, but the frame's not visible. Okay, so we're gonna place this in just nice and simple. Just imagine you can see the frame, right? The frame is really similar to the one we've just got. So we're gonna place it in row equals 0, column equals 0, and we'll give it a pad x of 20, pad y of 20 as well. Okay, so that's quite nice. We are going to reduce the size now just so that we can fit, for example, longer names. That should be placed, that's all there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to make it so that once this button is called, right, once the button is pressed, it will remove this frame and it will place the new account frame in this with all of its widgets. Okay, let's do that now. So we're going to say, we're going to call this switch frame. Let's remove all the stuff that we have here. Actually, no, let's keep this for now. And we are going to change, this time we're going to change label welcome to configure it. And we're going to say welcome, and user input, the entry name, that's completely fine. That should be good. Now what we're going to do, we're going to remove the first frame. So the first frame is frame login, right? The way we remove widgets is it's really simple. It was really similar for all the different geometry managers. What you have to do is you do the widget, so in this case frame login, and we do dot, and because we used pack, we're going to have to do pack underscore forget. Nice and simple. That's all it does with all of these. You could also have some, for example, you could have dot grid forget as well. And there's another manager called place, right? And we can do very similar, dot place forget. All of these are really similar. If you use pack, do pack forget. If you use grid forget. If you don't place, do place forget. Really simple. Okay. So we're gonna remove the login widget, and we're gonna place in the account widget. We're gonna place in this account frame. All right. Let's give it a try then. So we've created everything, let's give it a run. Oh yeah, I forgot to change the command, yeah. Okay, so we're going to change it back to this, switch frame. Okay, nice and simple, we just placed in the name of the thing. And also, by the way, if you're wondering, you don't actually put the open close brackets for this, you just have to specify the name of the command, because when it runs it internally, it will add the open close technically, and it will just execute the subroutine that's at that name. Okay, so all you're putting in is just the identifier, but rather than the like an instance of the thing itself. Okay, let's give it a try then. So this actually doesn't do anything, right? It doesn't even use this password at all. We only use this really as an example for this. Let's give it a try now. So we're going to type in more, and we're going to type in some password. Doesn't really say anything. When we click OK, let's see what happens. There we go. See, our entire thing to do with the login has been removed. That's the one frame, and this new frame has been placed with this. Guys, thank you very much for watching this video. Okay, if you liked it, please do leave a like down below. It really helps the channel out. Subscribe if you're new and to never miss another upload. Okay, I've got lots of more videos coming out on all of the topics to do with once you've mastered the basics of Python. Okay, I hope this has helped you sort of dip your toes into what Tkinter actually is and how it's used. Hope to see you again in another video soon. Until next time, thanks for watching.